we have other questions from the audience? So we've been kind of touching on this in the discussion, but if you could project what will happen in the next 5 years, what do you think is going to happen with cloud?
Okay, here is my well, it's not my opinion. I actually heard it from Gartner or IDC, I can't remember who, and others. If you take what's happening with iPad and the mobile device, what's really driving the adoption is applications, right? The App Store. The App Store is the biggest driver. So I buy a phone, the Android phone, and I think, what are the apps I can get? What are the cool apps? Now, he showed me an app and I said, can we buy it? Can I sell it to a telco? Now, that's a quick conversation. So the prediction is that all applications, or a lot of applications, will come off enterprise app stores. And that's where the big telcos will come in and take our business away. Datacraft, Dimension Data, was acquired by NTT, Japan. It's a $4.5 billion company. Think about it. They were one of the biggest integrators, acquired by NTT Japan. Why? So they will build this out because they own the pipes. And that's why I worry about companies like yours, Denny, because they will kill you because they own the bandwidth. It's
I absolutely disagree.
I'll buy you a Budweiser.
No, I'm saying.
No, I have to answer this.
I'd like to hear you. No, I'd like to hear your opinion. No, I'm not.
Because you said it. No, I have to answer this.
Yeah, sure.
You said it perfectly well. They own the pipes. The beauty of these service providers, and again, no disrespect if there are any in the room, is that they don't know their from their elbow at the end of the day. So the beauty of them owning the pipe is they have a responsibility to continue delivering that pipe, and it's companies like ours that are going to put value and services on top of that pipe. Now, the ability to not be limited in terms of geography when it comes to the service provider allows all of us to be able to deploy at large and not be restrained or constrained by the telco. They will always deliver that pipe. It's up to us to put something intelligent over it. They're going to try and do it, but they'll wake up 8 years from now and already be onto something, and you'll be onto something else.
That's the only thing that gives
us
hope.
Or they'll buy us.
Yes.
One or the other.
The adoption by them is so poor. So my shelf life in Sri Lanka is a little longer because the telco companies are not getting it in Sri Lanka. But I completely agree with you, Denny, and that's where I'm positioning my company, and I say it to you.
So my business isn't at risk anymore.
Okay, but my business, so
I need to know.
So I'm looking at it completely differently to Denny. He's a courageous man. I respect him. But I'll tell you this, my play is to build this business, this small enabled business, and I'm exactly in the opposite direction. I'm going to put it up for a telco to buy me. What do you think of that?
I'm going to irritate them to the point that they do buy me.
Exactly. So you see, but of course we'll continue to provide those services because the telco guys sell bandwidth. They're idiots. They just
we are
sell
videoing.
bandwidth.
This is great.
Yeah. So they still don't get it. So they need companies like Denny, and also companies like Chris, who can produce more of those red buttons, cool demos. Come to my office, press a button, it'll transfer. Press another button, and you'll get another application. So we need more red buttons. Yeah. So I'm saying App Store, Enterprise App Store, Luanne, to answer your question specifically, is where the world will go. Companies can go to a big provider. They can be in partnership with a company like Denny or Enable or Bob and yours, Chris. That doesn't matter. But they will own it. They will own it because they have the network infrastructure. The network is the computer. But they'll sell you apps. And you just go and buy apps. No problem.
So first of all, Denny, can I have your free $5,000 marketing campaign when you go bust next year?
Sure.
And no, thankfully the telcos generally, interestingly, clearly, the biggest acquisition in our space this year was a telco buying a systems integrator. So I think that tells you how good the telcos are at maybe working with enterprise customers about internal IT infrastructure. I think 5 years' time, clearly people will uncouple their willingness to start to use as a service rather than do it themselves. I think it's actually going to be gradual. I think it's going to be reasonably slow. The reason is there's too many people working in IT departments who've worked there for so long that aren't just going to wake up tomorrow and say, don't care anymore. We still get tenders through the door that aren't one line long that says, give us some stuff and tell us what the SLA is and we'll be happy. They do tend to send us 10,000 word tenders to fill in and send back. So I think it's going that way. I think it's gradual. I think I think the marketing is ahead of the delivery still. And it's interesting when you go to a cloud symposium, everybody mentions Google Maps, Google Apps, everybody mentions Salesforce.com, everybody mentions Hotmail, and then people stop. And you don't have a list of 20 that people go bang, 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 bang. So I think it will be more gradual. The challenge for all of us in all of this in terms of the cloud is you've got to have great managed services. Potentially, you've got to be able to run your own data centers if you don't want to do it in colo. So it's a big investment. I think the biggest switch is going to come, however, Luanne, and I think you'll be pleased to hear this, is when you guys, I think your strategy of UCS being the platform for applications and the apps you're about to deliver with HCS, with Quad, that's the bit that's going to tear this thing apart. And I think that's when people will actually maybe stop thinking whether it's a HP server or a Cisco server, because they'll want Quad, they'll want HCS, and we want that kind of stuff. So I think that's the most exciting bit that I see coming in the next 12 months is the apps you guys bring out, because that's where our business is really focused now and trying to support those. So
I think 5 years from now, I think that it's going to be services and apps. I agree 100%. There's a few realities, too, that are still there, that have been there for the last 10, 15 years. Back to the telco point. 7, 8 years ago, the telcos were buying system integrators, right? They were doing the same thing they're doing today. At the end of the day, in 5 years from now, I think that we're going to be focused on cloud-type solutions, very, very specialized apps or solutions, because there's another reality there. It's this whole manpower issue where it's difficult for these companies to acquire and maintain talent and resources, etc. So these companies that are able to just unload this to a third party and don't have to worry about all these staffing issues and everything else, I think that trend and that is really going to have an effect on how quickly these types of solutions are accepted and purchased by the end client. Because you remove that dependency on having that network, in my case, that network expert in your environment, you don't have that problem anymore. It's somebody else's problem. So.
But by the way, the mainframe's been dying for 20 years, and we sold more mainframes this year than we've ever sold. So, let's. I don't think we should be ahead of ourselves in tearing our businesses up. But we've got to go there. All of your partners have got to go there in some way. No option.
All right, I have a fun last question. If you had €1 million to do your marketing budget, what's the one creative thing you would do to market cloud? Come on, this is the out-of-the-box thinking. Think of Anders last night.
I'd buy a flip phone and spend the other $999,000 on a holiday.
Did you get that? That's great.
I think I would do more video. I think I appreciate the flip videos and the quality of them and so forth, and I think they have their place. But I'm always amazed that when you see a good high quality video produced well, and they're expensive to do. So I think I would spend more money on high quality videos. That's not really that far out of the box, Luanne, but that's more practical Midwest guy.
Denis?
I don't know. I think I just use it on lead generation. I think the more you take care of people around you, I think the happier they are, the more business they bring you. So at the end of the day, I think I just throw it out there for every company that I interact with or I could interact with and say, here, every time you bring me a client, here's 10 grand. Have a nice day. That's what I would do.
So here's what I'll do. I think I'll hire 12 people, evangelists. I'll teach them how to tell the story. And I'll send them all over the world. And I'll use the €1 million to look after their sales commission. Because too many of the Cisco folks are driven by weekly numbers. And if you are driven by weekly numbers, you are never going to take the trouble to tell a story. Sun Microsystems succeeded because they came to countries like Sri Lanka. They flew from Icon, Intercontinental, that's what they were called, in Menlo Park. They got on planes and they went there and they told a story. And they were not on weekly numbers. So I'd use that $1 million to hire 12 people and send them out to propagate the story. That's this whole Cisco story and the cloud story. Because I'm thinking of two important people in the world. One was Lenin. He said, give me 10 professional revolutionaries and I will overturn Russia. 10. But the other example that we all know is Jesus Christ had 12 disciples. One of whom was I'm named after Peter. And he had no travel ban. There was no travel ban for the disciples and no sales quota. So they spread Christianity
Yeah, but
without any
they didn't have a
problem.
quota, but if they didn't meet the stretch, they had a heck of a problem.
So I'm saying, send good storytellers to the market, send evangelists, and let them tell the great Cisco story. That's what I would do.
Great. Well, I want to just take a moment to thank our esteemed panelists today. That was Hopefully we gave you some ideas that you could go back to your companies and start thinking about. And what's next on the agenda is we have a 15-minute break, and at 4:15, Joe Jaffe starts. So right back here. So maybe run out and grab a coffee, and we'll come back here in 15 minutes.